Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, and we are doing breaches of the week. And before I dive into the breaches, I'd like to thank the following people as usual: Chris Fallon, Sander Slidnerink, Rebecca Rutherford, and David Walker. And if I missed your name, I apologize. I'll give you a shout out next week. And if you have a tip for me, please feel free to send it to me, message me, post it to me, whatever that is. It is always appreciated, and it always helps me out. And with that, let's begin with a brand new scam. Now, a new bulletin posted by researchers at Kaspersky is outlining an unusual fraud scheme targeting victims of data breaches, which is why we are talking about it in Breaches of the Week. Now, scammers appear to have set up a website claiming to be run by the, and I quote, U.S. Trading Commission that promises financial compensation for, and I quote again, leakage of personal data. The website basically leads to numerous forms where you are asked to provide information like your first name, last name, credit card number, social security number, basically to verify your identity. Not suspicious at all, right? Now, here's the interesting thing that Kaspersky also enumerated. If you don't have a social security number as a U.S. citizen or a resident, this site will sell you one so that you can get in the system so that the U.S. Trading Commission can go ahead and pay your fine. Now, the interesting part is the United States does not have a U.S. Trading Commission, and if anybody is offering to pay your fine, you should probably be suspicious, but heads up to that new data breach scam. Moving on, let's talk about an organization called HealthQuest. They are actually sending out another round of letters to inform patients that their network data breach was much larger in scope than originally estimated. HealthQuest was not able to quantify how many of its customers were impacted, and this stems from a July 2018 phishing incident that resulted in multiple HealthQuest employees sharing their email account usernames and passwords with attackers. So if you use HealthQuest, heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about a website called WeLeakInfo.com. That is an actual site, and this site claimed to be focused on helping breached internet users discover if their personal data had been compromised by basically selling them access to the billions of records they had collected. But it also provided a resource to basically cyber criminals that could go in and pull out data on absolutely anything to launch credential surfing attacks, phishing attacks, and other kinds of attacks. And so, with that, the FBI joined forces with the United Kingdom's National Crime Agency and other law enforcement agencies to suspend the website. And so WeLeakInfo.com's domain was seized by the U.S. federal government after the District Court for the District of Columbia issued a warrant, and its administrators are still at large. So hopefully that is a very good thing, but WeLeakInfo was basically selling data breach information to attackers that would create more data breaches. That's not cool. Moving on, we're heading down under to Australia, and we're talking about PNN Bank. They're reporting a breach after basically detailed and sensitive financial information was exposed on an unspecified number of customers. Now, access to their systems were gained on December 12th of 2019, and this was hitting the bank customer relationship management system, which is operated by a third-party hosting firm. That that was actually going through an upgrade, and that's when they got hit. Details on how it was accessed was not revealed for security purposes, but PNN said once the breach was noticed, the system in question was immediately shut down. Information that could have been exposed includes names, addresses, emails, phone numbers, customer numbers, age, account numbers, and account balance. Additional pieces of what PNN considers non-sensitive data, such as interactions between the bank and its customers, was also in this breach system. So heads up to my friends and family and colleagues in Australia. If you use PNN Bank, you may have been exposed. Moving on, let's talk about Adventist Health out of Sonora, California. A phishing incident compromised an email account at Adventist Health Simi Valley, and it contained patient information outside of the immediate service area through partner and vendor communications. Patient information that could have been accessed during the data breach includes names, dates of birth, medical record numbers, hospital account numbers, insurance information, and details related to care received as a patient. So if you have anything to do with Adventist Health Simi Valley, in Sonora, California. Heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about the Columbus Metropolitan Library. This is Columbus, Ohio. A data breach is causing problems for nearly 100 employees at the Columbus Metropolitan Library system. Now, attackers got their names and personal information and then used it to actually open fraudulent bank accounts in their names. The victims found out about this over the past weekend. One worker discovered a fake bank account had been set up in their name, and that started basically a domino effect of other employees identifying similar issues, and more people came forward to say the same thing that has been done. So, heads up, and I'm sure you know it if you are a member of the Columbus Metropolitan Library staff, but you are compromised. Moving on, we actually have to talk about thousands of adult stars, meaning porn stars. Now, an Amazon web server hosting a large adult site was insecure and literally showing open folders. Anyone with the correct link could have accessed the 870,000 files or 20 gig of personal data on the models used by this website. Some of the files included contracts signed by these adult stars, which basically revealed personal information such as dates of birth, addresses, and physical information like piercings, tattoos, and scars. So heads up, adult stars watching this, and I assume there's, I don't know, maybe one of you out there watching this, you may have been compromised. Moving on, we are talking about Southeast Eye Specialist Group in Franklin, Tennessee. They are notifying 13,000 patients that their protected health information may have been exposed in a data breach. Now, this is a result of email phishing, and the patient data that may have been exposed included social security numbers and treatment information. So heads up to patients of Southeast Eye Specialist Group in Franklin, Tennessee. Moving on, we are talking about a restaurant chain called the Crack Shack, which sadly didn't do what I thought it did, but that is actually kind of cool. They just had, unfortunately for the Crack Shack, a payment card compromise at their Encinitas location in California. Payment card information included in magnetic stripe tracking data such as name, card number, expiration date, and the CVV number on the back as well that were used. So basically, if you were in the Crack Shack or paid by credit card in Encinitas, California between August 19th and September 23rd of 2019, you were compromised. So heads up to Crack Shack connoisseurs. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the city of Corner Brook. This is up in the Great White North of Canada. They're reporting that private information on their website, the city's website, was accessed by 4 different unauthorized users. The users managed to access the directory of the website, which contained information used in a previous voters list, such as names, addresses, and dates of birth, despite the directory typically being inaccessible on the website. So the breach exposed information on roughly 10,000 people in Corner Brook, Canada. City officials said that while they can confirm that unknown actors accessed the directory, they do not know if the personal information itself was viewed. Odds are it was. Moving on, let's stick in the Great White North and talk about PlanetDrugsDirect.com out of Canada. Now, they are in Winnipeg, and they are an online pharmacy, and they were offline for days after telling customers that their information, including medications and medical history, may have been compromised in a security incident. As of Friday morning, a couple of days ago, Planet Drugs Direct was down, and it had been unreachable for 36 hours at that point. And this is shortly after the news story broke. The company says it has 400,000 customers. Now, I looked at their website this morning, and they are back online, but interestingly enough, and I'd be curious to know from any Canadian cybersecurity or legal experts out there if this is legal in Canada or not, but their webpage, as far as I could tell, their homepage had 0 notices whatsoever of this outage for a third-party data breach. So we'll see where that goes, but if you are one of the 400,000 that uses PlanetDrugsDirect.com, you may be compromised. Moving on, I'm going to give you guys an update on Wawa. Now, if you're not familiar with them, they are a supermarket chain, I believe, primarily in the eastern United States, headquartered in Pennsylvania. And here comes the lawsuits because they got breached, I want to say, a couple of months ago. So Pennsylvania's First Choice Federal Credit Union filed a lawsuit following this data breach. Now, the lawsuit alleges that the data breach exposed data, including credit and debit card holder names and other information, for basically 9 months. If you recall, they were breached, or Wawa was exposed for about 9 months through 2019. Obviously, Pennsylvania's First Choice Federal Credit Union has a whole lot of cardholders that were probably using Wawa, and so they are one of many that will be suing Wawa, ideally in a class action lawsuit. At least that's according to the attorney. So heads up if you shop at Wawa, and I know a lot of you do. Moving on, let's talk about the Panama Buena Vista Union School District in California. All phones and Windows operating system based computers were hit with ransomware and knocked out, and this is as a result of TrickBot, and that is a very nasty infection in that sense. So that's all the information I have now, but if you have anything to do with the Buena Vista Union School District in California, heads up. I hope you guys get that cleared up. Moving on, let's talk about the New Mexico Public Relations Commission in the state of New Mexico. This state agency is the one that regulates public utilities in New Mexico, and they were, quote unquote, hacked by an outside source, basically according to their chief of staff, Jason Montoya, and the governor's office also confirmed this past Tuesday. Now, Montoya said the commission's preliminary findings indicate the source might have been a foreign country, although there is not yet confirmation of this, and their website had been down since about Thursday or so. So heads up, if you have anything to do with the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission, you may have been hit. Moving on, let's talk about our Arrigo Automotive Group in West Palm Beach, Florida. They are the latest car dealership, as far as I know, to get hit with ransomware. Now, rather than pay the ransom, Arrigo's IT team chose to contact the FBI and purchase 250 new computers and then hire a third-party cybersecurity firm to begin remediation. So they are basically going in full tilt and blowing it away and creating a whole new network. So good luck, Arrigo Automotive Group, and heads up, if you have purchased a vehicle from them or work for them, you may be exposed. Moving on, and this might actually be a new segment in Breaches of the Week, let's talk about Password Leak of the Week. A hacker published this week a massive list of Telnet credentials to more than 515,000 servers, home routers, and IoT smart devices. This list, which was published on a popular hacking forum in the dark web, includes each device's IP address along with a username and password for the Telnet service, a remote access protocol, which basically can be used to control devices over the internet. If you're not familiar with Telnet, that's basically what it does. It's kind of old school, but it is still heavily in use. I use it myself. This also underscores the need to make sure that your default usernames and passwords are changed, because anything gets exposed out there and it has hard-coded default credentials, we can simply search for it and log right in. So heads up to you. It's one of the things we look for in cybersecurity assessments, and virtually every single assessment that I do for corporations, I find default usernames and passwords sitting within the network. It is a menace. Moving on, let's talk about your baby's first data breach, and that would be Peekaboo Moments. Now, Peekaboo Moments is an app, and thousands, you know where I'm going with this, thousands of baby videos and images were basically left unsecured and exposed to the internet by this mobile app, Peekaboo Moments. That's because the app's developer, BitHouse Inc., left an Elasticsearch database open to the internet. Now, the Peekaboo Moments database contains more than 70 million log files comprising more than 100 gigabytes of data with information appearing to date from March 2019 and on. Exposed data includes email addresses, detailed device data, and often links to photos and videos, all of which are getting stored on servers hosted by Alibaba's cloud. This is based out of Singapore. Dan Ehrlich, who is the researcher that found this mess, estimates that at least 800,000 email addresses are exposed in the data. The app also transmits sensitive data for babies. It has a growth tracker that allows people to record their baby's length and weight. It also has a field for a baby's birth date. For some of the babies whose data was exposed, this is quite possibly their very first data breach exposure. So congratulations, guys. We are raising the next generation of breached citizens. Another field, interestingly enough, shows that the app records location data in latitude and longitude to 4 decimal points, which basically makes it roughly accurate to within 30 feet of an individual's in location. God forbid some kind of child predator were able to get hold of this, you would literally have a GPS map to babies everywhere. And The company wrote on their website, and I quote, on Google Play, "We completely understand how these moments are important to you. Data privacy and security come as our priority. Every baby's photo, audios, and videos or diaries will be stored in secure space. Only family and friends can have access to baby's moments at your control." This is their default wording, emphasizing security, and it really underscores the fact that when we are downloading an app or even walking into a retail store to use our credit card, we are entering into a trust relationship with that app, organization, store, whatever that is. We are trusting them to safeguard our data. We are trusting them to safeguard our credit card information, or if they have video cameras, that they're not sitting there dumping them out onto YouTube of us shopping in their stores. And by virtue of that, when that trust is broken so deeply, I think what we really call for here is a lot of transparency, and that is a major problem because we literally have thousands, if not tens of thousands or more, infants, babies, toddlers now exposed by virtue of this app, and that is a very serious problem. And we are still not done with breaches of the week because it gets worse, and I'm talking to you owners in North America of a Honda vehicle. Yes, that Honda. Personal details of more than 976 million customers have been leaked. Wow. As a result of a recent massive data breach involving around 976 million records, nearly 1 million files were exposed in a Honda Automotive Company database, which contained various details about thousands of vehicles and their owners. So in other words, the headline that I'm reading here is probably 976 million customers. It's probably 976 million records, just to correct that. But we are looking at tens of thousands at least of vehicles and their owners. It was not necessary, to enter a password or any other authentication methodology to get into this database. And so it was completely exposed for anybody to download and dump, which is probably what we fear is going to happen. And we'll probably see this information get going, or rather start to get released in hacker forums and identity theft forums all over the place. Now, the information from Honda that was exposed was full names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, make and model of the vehicle, number of vehicle plates, records on maintenance services as well. So heads up, Honda owners, you just got breached. And finally, we will go to finally now, because this has been a long video this week. State-sponsored hacking against U.S. municipal targets is now being basically declared on by the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Now, nation-state attackers breached networks of 2 municipalities last year, according to the FBI. They used a known SharePoint vulnerability to basically hit these cities and access the data illegally. They're not sure if it's the same group, but the interesting part, according to what the FBI is stating, is that the exploit characteristics used for this particular vulnerability and the methodology they use to bypass authentication all point to Chinese-sponsored hackers. In other words, the state of China sponsoring these attackers to get into U.S. municipalities. That is according to the FBI, and that really underscores a couple of different things. I talked earlier about entering into a trust relationship, with peekaboo moments. Here we have the other real thing that we need to underscore, and that is the ability not just to monitor and defend, with things like web application firewalls, regular firewalls, et cetera. It also really underscores the need to update critical infrastructure like SharePoint. If you recall, Equifax got hit when their Apache Struts was not updated. That is according to Equifax. And here we have 2 municipalities that were basically not updating their SharePoint. And so they were basically getting hit by a very common vulnerability that anybody literally could have Googled and gone to the CVE database and looked up. And so we are going to continue to see this rise. We really oftentimes, when we are getting into organizations running exploit framework, oftentimes we don't have to reinvent the wheel if we can enumerate what the technology is and then look at the CVE database and say, okay, there's 100 different vulnerabilities for this particular product, and we'll try them all until one works. It's very easy and it's very straightforward to do, and it really doesn't require a lot of effort or thought. And this is the backdrop that we have for this. We are spinning up into the 2020 election here in the United States, and our municipalities are the ones that are going to be running the voting machines. They're going to be running this information, not to mention storing voter rolls on their local citizens. I'm sure my local government included as well will have that information. And here we go. And I think that is something that we need to look at, because the United States, by all accounts, is the number one target from basically attackers from around the world trying to get into absolutely everything, whether it's government from local to federal, businesses, our citizens, and all of that. I mean, hacking is a problem worldwide, and I'm not trying to mitigate it to any other country. But when you look at the actual leveled threats here, usually the number one target on the planet is the United States, hands down, which obviously is not good. And I don't care if you're the 100th target on the planet, it's still not good. We just need to make sure that we are keeping ever vigilant on this, especially in our local governments that tend to not have the budget, or tend to be lax, or tend to be behind, as government tends to move much slower than the private sector. So those are your breaches rather of the week. It was a crazy week for breaches, and pretty damning. And if you drive a Honda, you were probably exposed. And if you have a baby and you were using that app, you were definitely exposed. So that sucks for you. And I hope everybody is keeping safe out there in that sense. And so those are your breaches of the week. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.